Welcome back to Verity Tales, where we explore the fascinating histories around the globe. Today, we dive into the intriguing past of Singapore, a nation known for its incredible transformation from a small trading post to a global financial hub. Our story begins centuries ago with a legend. According to folklore, a Sumatran prince named Sri Tribhuwana, also known as Sang Nila Utama, landed on an island and saw an animal he believed to be a lion. Taking it as a good omen, he decided to establish a city there, naming it Singapura, which means Lion City in Sanskrit. Though the veracity of this tale is debated, it remains a cherished part of Singapore's cultural heritage. Before the name Singapura was recorded in the 16th century, this island was known by different names and served various roles in the region. In ancient times, the island was often referred to as Temasek or Temasek, derived from the Javanese term Tasek, meaning sea. It was primarily a small trading station populated by pirates and fishermen, acting as an outpost for the Sumatran realm of Srivijaya. Throughout its early history, Temasek faced numerous invasions. In 1025, Rajendra Chola I of the Chola dynasty from southern India attacked the island. In 1068, another invasion by the Cholas occurred. The Javanese king Kertanagra likely attacked Temasek in 1275, and in 1349, Chinese traveler Wang Deyuan documented an attack by 70 Thai war boats, which lasted a month before they were repelled. Temasek's significance is highlighted in the 1365 Javanese epic poem Garakgama, which lists it among the conquests of the Majapahit kingdom. However, by the late 14th century, Temasek's influence waned, and the rise of Malacca overshadowed it. Yet, the island remained a notable port, frequented by figures like Saint Francis Xavier in the 16th century. The name Singapura, Lion City, may have been influenced by Buddhist monks who revered the lion as a symbol. Alternatively, it might have been named by Rajendra Chola I himself. Despite these legends, the actual animal cited was likely a tiger, as told in the Sejarah Melayu, a Malay chronicle. The modern history of Singapore took a pivotal turn in January 1819 when Sir Stamford Raffles of the English East India Company arrived on the island. Raffles saw potential in Singapore as a strategic trading post. He encountered a small community of Chinese planters, indigenous people, and Malays. Raffles negotiated with the Temenggong, the local chief, and his relative Hussein, who he recognized as the legitimate sultan instead of Abdul Rahman, who was under Dutch control. This bold move allowed Raffles to secure a treaty, establishing Singapore as a British trading post, despite Dutch objections. In 1824, the British gained control of Malaya and Singapore through the Anglo-Dutch Treaty. This pivotal agreement resulted in the British taking possession of the entire island of Singapore in exchange for money. 2 years later, Singapore was merged with Penang and Malacca to form the Straits Settlements. This move was part of a strategy to establish an outlying residence of India. Initially, the Straits Settlements were under the administration of Bengal. However, in 1832, the capital was moved to Singapore, reflecting its growing importance. Despite this, the East India Company's interest in Malaya waned after losing its monopoly on the China trade in 1833. In 1851, control of these colonies was transferred to the Governor-General of India. This change laid the groundwork for Singapore's formal status as a royal colony in 1867, overseen by the Colonial Office in London. Despite competition from French cities in mainland Southeast Asia and Dutch ports in the Dutch East Indies, Singapore's trade faced challenges after 1842. The British development of Hong Kong also posed a threat. However, the opening of the Suez Canal in 1869 marked the beginning of a golden age for Singapore. The arrival of steamships revolutionized trade, leading to the construction of extensive wharves at Tanjong Pagar. By 1921, Singapore even boasted a naval station. The economic rise of the Malay states as British protectorates further fueled the expansion of transit commerce. Singapore became a crucial port for the industrialized West, primarily due to the high demand for tin and rubber. Following World War I, the British took significant steps to fortify Malaya and build a massive naval station in Singapore, especially after the collapse of the Anglo-Japanese alliance. Colonialism in Singapore came to a dramatic close with the onset of World War II. In early December 1941, Japanese forces landed on the Malay Peninsula. By the end of January 1942, they had swiftly conquered the peninsula, positioning themselves to strike at Singapore. On February 8, 1942, Japanese forces crossed the Johor Strait. A week later, British command surrendered Singapore. The island remained under Japanese occupation until September 1945. After the war, Singapore's largely Chinese population was seen as a barrier to universal citizenship in the British political plans for Malaya. Initially intended to be part of the Malayan Union, and later the Federation of Malaya, Singapore was instead made an independent crown colony in 1946. Despite a communist insurgency in Malaya, Singapore advanced constitutionally. By 1955, elected ministries and a majority-elected legislative assembly were established, giving Singapore significant self-governance except in defense and foreign policy. Singapore achieved full self-governance in 1959, and the People's Action Party, led by Lee Kuan Yew, formed the government. However, internal political strife continued. Radical left-wing leaders, who split from the PAP to form the Socialist Front, opposed the concept of merging with Malaysia. In 1963, Singapore joined the Federation of Malaysia. However, political and ethnic tensions between the federal government and Singapore's state administration soon emerged. These tensions culminated in 1964 with civil unrest. Relations between Singapore and the Central Malaysian government deteriorated, leading to Singapore's expulsion from the Federation in 1965. On August 9, 1965, Singapore became an independent nation. The following year, the confrontation between Indonesia and Malaysia ended, but the ethnically charged conflict left a lasting impact on Singapore-Malaysia relations. In January 1968, the British government announced the withdrawal of its forces from East and Southeast Asia by the end of 1971. Singapore faced significant economic challenges as it prepared for this major transition. In response, the government implemented policies to mitigate the economic impact of the British military withdrawal. The People's Action Party consolidated its power, winning complete control of Parliament in an early election in April 1968, signaling public approval of its strategies. The last days of October 1971 marked the conclusion of the British military's tenure in Singapore. Back in 1957, Britain had committed to defending the area under the Anglo-Malayan Treaty. However, with the treaty's cancellation, a new five-power defense agreement emerged, involving Singapore, Malaysia, Australia, and New Zealand as equal participants. Starting in the 1970s, Singapore's government actively sought to expand the economy through trade and exports. The nation also became increasingly involved in regional diplomacy, joining ASEAN in 1967 and quickly rising to prominence within the organization by 1980. Despite the opposition parties increasing their parliamentary representation from 1 to 4 seats between 1981 and 1991, the People's Action Party, or PAP, maintained its dominance over Singaporean politics until Lee Kuan Yew's resignation as Prime Minister in 1990. Although Lee Kuan Yew resigned as Prime Minister, he continued to wield influence as a senior minister in the cabinet. Goh Chok Tong, who had served as Deputy Prime Minister, succeeded him in late 1990. In the 1991 parliamentary campaign, opposition candidates gained 4 seats. However, in the 1997, 2001, and 2006 elections, their numbers decreased to 2 each time. Despite the modest gains by opposition parties, the PAP maintained its strong parliamentary mandate. The late 1990s Asian financial crisis hit Singapore's economy hard, but the country's strong industrial sector helped it recover by the early 2000s. During this period, Lee Hsien Loong, son of Lee Kuan Yew, was appointed Deputy Prime Minister, signaling a planned transition of leadership. In August 2004, when Goh Chok Tong resigned, Lee Hsien Loong was appointed Prime Minister. This marked a significant shift in leadership, with Go becoming a senior minister and the elder Lee serving as minister mentor, both retaining significant roles in the cabinet. In 2006, under the leadership of Lee Hsien Loong, the People's Action Party, or PAP, successfully maintained its dominant position in parliament following well-run elections. However, the global recession of 2008 and 2009 hit Singapore hard, and it wasn't until 2010 that the country began to recover. A crucial element of this recovery was the expansion of the service sector, particularly the tourism industry. The opening of two massive resort complexes in 2010, which housed Singapore's first two legally licensed casinos, marked a significant boost for the economy. When Lee Hsien Loong became Prime Minister in 2004, there was hope that he might loosen Singapore's strict libel laws and prohibitions on criticism. However, he continued his father's practice of suing critics and political opponents for libel, which drew both international censure and domestic unrest. The 2011 parliamentary election saw an unexpected surge in opposition performance, with the opposition gaining 6 seats. Later that year, Tony Tan, the PAP-backed candidate, narrowly won the presidential election. In response to the election results, the Lee government began to consider measures to address residents' concerns more effectively. The resignations of Lee Kuan Yew and Goh Chok Tong from the cabinet in 2011 signaled a shift towards new methods and styles of governance. Reforms aimed at reducing the financial burden on lower-income Singaporeans were introduced in education, public housing, and healthcare. A mandatory national healthcare program was set to begin in late 2015. Despite these reforms, the government maintained its stance on defamation, as demonstrated in 2014 when Prime Minister Lee successfully sued an internet blogger for libel. In 2015, Singapore experienced two historic events. The nation mourned the death of its founding father, Lee Kuan Yew, in March. In August, a grand celebration marked the 50th anniversary of Singapore's independence from Malaysia. In early September, elections were held after President Tony Tan dissolved parliament. The PAP secured a significant victory, winning 83 out of 89 seats. Diplomatic relations with neighboring countries have strengthened since the turn of the century. Although water-related issues with Malaysia persisted, agreements were reached on territorial disputes, water supply, and transit access. In 2006, Singapore and Indonesia created special economic zones on nearby islands, and in 2010, Singapore joined an ASEAN agreement with China to establish a largely tariff-free trading zone. From a small trading outpost with a legendary founding to a critical port under British rule, and now a global city-state, Singapore's history is a testament to its resilience and strategic importance. Join us next time on Verity Tales as we uncover more captivating stories from the past. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Verity Tales for more historical explorations. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to dive deeper into the fascinating history of Singapore, grab a copy of our detailed book version, link in the description. Packed with rich insights and captivating stories, it's a must-read for history enthusiasts.